What makes hip-hop unique is it is both a genre of music and a culture. Perhaps this is the reason our parents didn't understand, saying it was just noise, required very little skill, or that it wasn't music at all. It's the reason we took offense when they spoke against it, prompting us to rebel, and the perpetual cycle of life and art reflecting each other, it evolved. In the beginning, it was our thing, but it and we grew up. On the outside, we gripe about the music, but on the inside, we can't help but laugh at ourselves as we are now the ones saying, "You'll understand when you get older," because once upon a time, we were them. What do you think about the music your children currently like today? How do you think it affects the way they see the world?
Music is a good way at this current time to express yourself.
Music evolves constantly. I know times are different now than it was, when I was young, and I know hip hop is sort of a different culture currently in the 2000s and teens than it was in the 90s and the 80s.
The music industry today is all messed up.
Simple. I can't say I don't like it because it's catchy.
It's all right. Some of the music's not bad. Some of the music's not really that good.
I really don't listen to it.
Like the stuff that I listen to with my children around is different from the stuff that I listen to without them around. But I know for a fact that, my son's mom listens to the radio, so he hears everything. All down to I'll have the radio on, every so often, and he'll be singing a song word for word, and it's just like, why do you even know that song?
Honestly, I really don't like the music they listening to today because it's more so dedicated to violence and it's music with no substance.
It just doesn't catch my ear. It's no talent involved. Not to knock them, get your money, and if that's the way the machine is pushing.
I feel like the music now, it's confusing because the message, they want to party and be aggressive, but they don't know how to cope with those emotions because there's no main direction when they write. There's no aim, like basic English.
You can't understand what they're saying.
I don't necessarily like the records that they like.
I think in general, the music today just doesn't have as much care. You also got to separate which artist is telling truth and which artist is telling a lie. Content isn't there, but like I said, there's no poetic justice to it, in my opinion. Some artists, that's their story. That's really what they've been through. They can relate, so they telling their story through music versus like a poet. A poet would tell their story through poetry.
Right now, my kids listen to a lot of Dora the Explorer, so I'm pretty sure she's gonna grow up and have an appreciation for different cultures, different languages. She's on that Sesame Street phase, so again, a lot of cultural awareness and whatnot.
It's still pretty innocent in a certain way. My kids are under 10, all of them, and I don't think they've put the correlations together about music and life together yet.
I try not to look into the words too much.
I think it influences the kids heavily.
You ugly. You your daddy's kid. What's that song?
And I feel like everybody's just kind of talking about the same things over and over.
The Juju on the beat. I hate that record, son. Like, I would hear this shit, I'm like, yo, that's a fucking nuck if you buck.
Kids in this generation don't want to be silent.
You can't tell me this record, this is the same record, but just kids singing on it now, rapping some shit I don't understand. Like, so my kids love it, and then some of these records.
My oldest listens to some of the crap today, so at the end of the day, it can't be too much worse.
They don't want to be silent. They want to speak their mind.
Doesn't have as much depth. Like when you listen to it, I don't feel like the artist who's singing it or producing it has that much of an emotional tie to it.
As a parent, you get into it because your children like stuff, as long as it's appropriate.
But, who knew I could like pop music so much as well, as I try to keep them away from every trap song possible.
And they're hearing it at school or hearing it at clubs or wherever the case may be. But ultimately, I want them to have an educated choice, and if they choose the new stuff, that's great. But I think they'll also know about the MJs and the Princes and the old school music that I listen to as well.
If you could utilize music to express yourself in a way where everybody could pick it up, why not?
They believe everything they listen to. They really think these kids is out there really rapping about what they do. I understand that there's fads, there'll always be fads, but I feel like when it comes to that music, from a parental standpoint, we have to break it down like this is a fallacy, you know, this is a fantasy, this is far-fetched, what they're talking about.
It makes these young children believe that life is all about a party and showing off and kind of reaping the benefits. They don't talk about the work put in to get to this place where you can reap the benefits.
If you ask me, I would rather them to listen to more of the 90s music, early 2000 music, because it has substance and it was people trying to grind, people trying to get to the top, people trying to be successful.
Sometimes it might have a negative influence on them, but then sometimes, you know, it might have a positive influence on them depending on what it is that they're doing.
At least when I was listening to hip hop coming up, you know, I read books, you know, because the lyrics, some of the lyrics, they would push you towards books or certain individuals.
And most importantly, what they're glorifying in the music, you better not worship that or find that route.
I think the music doesn't embody what we're about anymore. Now they're pushing a lot of drugs, a lot of liquor, a lot of mumble and fun times.
It's always talking about killing and drugs and...
But then also, it's a whole bunch of drug music.
Not popping mollies and whatever else these younger artists talk about.
My children are young, they're not doing drugs. I don't want them thinking about drugs, but they're talking about drugs when they're reciting any song.
There's a lot of things you can protect your kids from and certain things you can't, but to hear it every day through music, and then sometimes kids that's not fortunate, they gotta see it every day.
My oldest is 9 years old, and when I was her age, I pretty much knew too much about life. I knew too much about adulthood, too much about struggle, about guns, sex, violence, everything you could think of that a kid that age shouldn't know. So I'm doing my best to keep it all, you know, kiddie still. Let them enjoy the music that they like before they start to see how it's really correlated into real people's lives.
As far as like some of the artists that they listen to, with all the passing away that's been going on with the artists, sometimes they, you know, I see them, they're a little sad. They think about the artists more, like some of the artists actually touch them.
I feel like today's music, you know, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good music that's out there.
My daughter, she's humbly speaking, an awesome singer, 15 years old. She loves world music.
I'm gonna expose expose my child to as much music as possible.
She loves Asian music. She loves like the K-pop stuff. I don't know about that, but she loves gospel, of course. She loves jazz and R&B.
I want them to be as diverse as possible and listen to as many artists and as many types of music as much as they can.
She's adaptable. She likes all types of music.
To experience the old, the new, and allow them to make their own choices. And of course, you know, they're gonna like some of the newer stuff that their friends are, you know, interested in.
There's a lot of cookie cutter music.
Newer artists don't make music for us, really, unless it's like, you know, your what they consider not even conscious rap, but you know, like your J. Cole's, your Kendricks, you know, people that are actually saying stuff. You know what I mean? Not just, you know, nonsense.
I'm not gonna say all, but like I said, the machine. You have a little sprinkle here and there, but for the most part, no, it's simple.
The music has gotten kind of watered down now. It's the same beat every time you hear it. Of course, it's my opinion. It's not that boom bap. I grew up on the boom bap nation.
Hip hop when I was growing up was more about the dream, more about lyrics, more about bars. You actually felt it.
Whereas now this is more or less lyricists that you see today. You don't see as many lyricists. It's more slurred speech and mumble rap.
This one you just vibe to it.
I watched an interview with Designer the other day, and he was talking about how vowels are what make a song hot to a certain extent, and he kind of proved it with all of his hot tracks and all of the hot tracks.
I also don't know if it's because I'm just disconnected from what society considers, you know, good music today.
My daughter likes that ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. I'm like, no, you can't fool me with a nice beat.
There's a Sprite commercial that has Cardi B's Drip Drip on, and you know, whenever that comes on, it's all right, you know, she's dancing, got a little kid. No, not her kid's bop, but she's got her kid bop on when she's like listening to that.
I asked my son one day his favorite artist or rapper or whatever, and he said Offset. Right. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I don't get it. But I mean, from what I understand, Offset is the most lyrical one out of the three amigos. I really don't know.
My wife's son loves Quavo. and the Migos. And he'll recite every word for word. And I always kind of challenge him on it. You don't know what you're saying. So from that aspect, I don't like it.
My daughter, she used to listen to Extension.
I see her dancing to this Cardi B, and I'm like, I don't want her to come up like Cardi B came up, but Cardi B came up, for real, came up in the last couple, year or two.
My son, he's an old soul at heart, but he's starting to listen to, I don't know if I get the name right, Lil Pump, Lil Uzi Vert, like all the littles.
My son was a big fan of 69, which I hate.
But once again, he has the balance because he hears what I listen to and his mother. And one thing I couldn't say, he goes back, to those golden eras of time, like New Edition. He loves New Edition. He knows about Nas, Jay-Z. So he's well balanced. That's the key, balance.
Kids love it because there's an entertainment aspect that's incorporated with the dancing and everything, but even the dances aren't as hard as they used to be to some degree.
I just would hear, and I don't even figure out what records they are no more. I just like, you know what, I don't like this shit. Y'all go to bed. Go to sleep. Everybody go to bed now. Like, y'all music choices is poor. You're gonna make poor decisions early in life. I'm gonna ground you for a long time.
Maybe a disconnect and maybe more of me just, being a stubborn, old, grumpy man who likes his Jay and Nas. You just never know.
It's just hard to gauge, man, because it's just like, we had our generation of music that we probably shouldn't have been listening to at the time, but we listened to it. And so now they're in the same, boat to a certain extent. The music is just for them, it's not for us.
See, in our era coming up, it was more like being a hustler. It doesn't necessarily mean like sell drugs, but just being a hustler. The message nowadays is more caught up into, all right, let's get wasted, let's become a druggie, you know what I'm saying? And that's like a sin of the culture. So, I combat that, I'm against that. So, but I'm understanding what goes on, because things change. But as a parent, once again, I stand firm to let him know that this is not the way to go. It's cool at the time, but it's not the way to go.
Lil Uzi Vert talks about weed and the drug of the day the same way Cap Calloway had a song called Funny Chiba Man back then.
I like the drill music, especially out of Brooklyn.
My youngest daughter, she happens to listen to Pop Smoke.
Most of those artists that's making that music, they've been doing this a long time.
And with his recent passing today, she it hasn't really affected her, but it's still somebody that she listens to.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I was listening to Warning at 9 years old.
It sounds a little bit, just a little bit.
Each generation, we get a new different sound, and I think that's the good thing about music, because it keeps on going and it keeps on going.
I would kind of say it's kind of the same. It's just now it's just a little bit more explicit.
You didn't know any better as a child, so, it was what it was. It was just a good time.
When that type of stuff does happen, and I happen to read about it or I happen to see it on social media, if they have any questions, sometimes they'll ask me, what happened? And, I try to let them know based on what I'm reading, stuff happens. You can't let stuff like that affect you. You got to really pay attention to your surroundings. Some people, you get famous and you forget how to move.
I'm not gonna shit on the new generation. I kind of like their music, but it's not the same. The golden era was definitely the 1980s to the 90s.
But they do make some catchy stuff, man. I can't front.
That's my nephew with Ink Boogie, yo.
Is it? Okay.
Oh my God, that is such a thing in New York.
In 10 years, when my kid is 9 going on 10, I don't know if there will be a hip hop. I don't know if there will be a new hip hop or a current hip hop. I feel like it's all melding together. I think that a lot of what we sort of 80s, 90s, 70s babies kind of think about hip hop is a certain style of music, a certain culture, and I'm not sure if I believe it's gonna be there anymore.
What is it? An emphasis on, I didn't even know. Emphasis on certain vowels. We'll let this train pass.
But ultimately, I think moving forward, music is going to be a huge part of my child's life. I mean, it's basically what makes me today.